Hello and welcome to Ground Control. This is the day that we Maiden the Ground Control Glue and Fly Series scratch build Interceptor Micro version 1. I've got all the electronics in it. I have for the FPV system, I have an Eachine TX03 all-in-one camera and VTX. For the servos, I have Emax 2.5 gram servos. I have some micro control horns that I cut down for this build, and I have 1mm brass linkage stops. One thing that I had to do that I hadn't planned on doing was I had to put a 6-channel receiver in it. That is the orange RX R618XL receiver. I had planned on using the 4-channel Redcon receiver, which is a much lighter receiver, and I only need 4 channels for this build. But because I could not get the Redcon receivers programmed for failsafe, I decided not to use it. I have a DYS 7000 kV 1104 motor and Eachine. I settled on the Eachine 3020 prop. I tested it against the Gemfan 3025. The amount of thrust that was produced was within 3 grams. This produced 169 grams of thrust. The Eachine 3025 produced 172 grams of thrust, but this also had a slightly lower amp draw than the Eachine 3025 prop, so I opted, or Gemfan 3025 prop, so I opted for the Eachine 3020 because the thrust was almost the same, but it did have a bit lower amp draw, and I was thinking of flight time. I'm using, I had a problem with my FET 20 amp ESCs. I bought them on sale, and I've used the FET little B 20 amp ESCs in the past. I think they're fantastic. I think the ones that I have now are actually clones, and they're junk. So what I had to use was an old Hobby King Plus 10 amp ESC with a BEC that supplies voltage to the receiver. So I had to do some trade-offs on the electronic components on this plane, because the electronic components that I had picked out and ordered turned out to be junk. So that's where I am. I think if I cut down, I've got quite a bit of slack in the wires and the leads from the ESC to the motor, and I think if I cut those down, I could probably reduce the weight by about 1 gram. If I get a decent 4-channel receiver instead of a 6-channel receiver, I can lower the weight by about 3.8 grams there. And then if I cut down the servo leads coming from the servos to the receiver, because there's quite a bit of slack in those, I could probably lower the weight about another 0.5 gram. I had planned on using servo connectors for the connectors between the motor and the ESC, since the amp draw is fairly low. Shouldn't be more than about 6.5 amps when it's airborne. So I will plan on doing that when I get the ESC that I want for this plane. That will lower the weight probably another 1 gram, because right now I've got 2mm bullet connectors on there instead of servo connectors. So I think that I could actually get the total weight of this plane, and my goal was to have it no heavier than 110 grams all up weight with the flight battery. And I think if I make those changes with the 4-channel receiver instead of the 6-channel, a lighter weight ESC, cut out the slack in the wiring, use a servo connector for the ESC and motor rather than 2mm bullets, I think I will have this all up weight on this plane down to about 100 grams all up weight, which I'm thrilled with. I thought it was going to be hard to hit 110 gram mark, but actually it was fairly easy. So you can see that all the electronics are installed. So what I want to do is pull out the flight battery, set the flight battery on top of this thing, and show you what the all-up weight is on this with the flight battery. I was ecstatic when I was able to get the weight to what I got it to. So you can see right now that I hope you can read that. The all-up weight on this plane with the flight battery and the FPV system is 107.8 grams. Excuse me. Now, when I tested this motor and this prop on my thrust stand, I was getting about 169 grams of thrust. The plane weighs 107.8. The fuselage is going to cut down on a little bit of the airflow through the prop, but I think that I'm going to end up with around a 1.5 to 1 thrust to weight ratio. So this plane should be a little rocket ship, but we'll find out. So this is the third plane in our stable, the Glue and Fly series. It has not been maidened yet. We're going to maiden that today. So keep your fingers crossed. The only thing I'm worried about is having some kind of electronic component failure, because that has plagued me so much in the past. But I think that this is going to be an excellent little flying plane. Once I test it, and if that proves to be the case, then I'll release the plans and the decals and the build video on the Patreon site. And then when I build version 2, I'll release it on our YouTube channel. But stay tuned. We're going to take this out to the field today and throw her in the air and see what she'll do. So let's go out to the field. I'll meet you out there.
Okay, this is the maiden flight of the ground control Interceptor version 1 Micro. It is not optimum conditions. We have wind out this morning at 5 to 8 miles an hour. This thing only weighs 107.8 grams all up weight. So we'll see how it goes. Alright, but we're airborne. Get back to about 50% throttle. I can definitely feel wind. But it's flying nicely for such a small, lightweight plane in this wind.
Wow.
This one I think has about low settings right now. Nice, happy. Nice loop. Get a nice roll with it. See if we can do a split S maneuver. Works okay. This is a very responsive plane. I have to say, it's a winner. I'm looking for my timer. I don't know what kind of flight time I'm going to get out this battery. So right now I have a timer set for 2 minutes.
Okay, so what did you guys think of my new little plane? As light as it is, I think it handled a 6 to 8 mile an hour wind just fine. I don't think I would hesitate to fly this in a 10 mile an hour wind. I was surprised at how well it did handle the wind with as lightweight as it is. You can make it lighter. Like I said, I think of the changes that I could make to it. I think I could get this all up weight with the FPV system down to about 100 grams, somewhere between 100 to 103 grams. I don't think that would be difficult to do at all. I had originally planned on putting a 1306 motor on this, but I wanted to try to create an airplane, a micro airplane, a nice park flyer, Parkjet that was about as lightweight as I could get it. So I think I succeeded in that. It's an excellent flyer. I never took it off of my lowest setting on my transmitter, which was 70% dual rate, 25% expo. It was extremely maneuverable with that setting, so I never put it into the intermediate mode or the advanced mode. It has an extremely high flight envelope. I could cruise around with this at about 35% throttle without stalling it. And when you throttle it up, it moves through the air pretty fast. I did loops, I did rolls, I did split S maneuvers. I tested the stall characteristics of it. I cut the throttle way back and pointed the nose up, waited for it to stall. The nose just kind of slides down at about a 45-degree angle. As soon as the nose is pointing down, you've got control of it again. It's not a problem. So I'm extremely happy with this build. I think when I make the template, the build template for the motor mount, I think I will have markings on there for either 1104 or a 1306 motor. I think if you wanted to put a 1306 4000 kV motor on here and put a 3-cell battery on it instead of a 2-cell, I think you could have a really nice little speed plane if you wanted to, and you could probably still keep it at about 120 grams all up weight. So I'm extremely happy with it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please give a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned, because we will now be working on our first micro trainer airplane. So be looking for that. See you next time.